Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. It is Markets in the Morning. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Welcome to Markets in the Morning. Today is Thursday, January 25th, 2024. It's Markets in the Morning, where we take a look at the price action of the cryptocurrency market, including the Bitcoin price charts and the altcoin market, along with taking a look over there at the United States stock market, which is set to open in the next 3 minutes, along with taking a look at precious metals like gold, the dollar, the DXY currency index, and any type of financial news or crypto news that seems important to start our day. Bitcoin sitting at 39,975 before the markets do open for the United States. U.S. GDP just came out for Q4, 3.3%, beating expectations of 2.0%. So a little bit of a surprise there to the market. As we get the day kicked off, it looks like the stock indexes are going to be up. We've got the Dow up 84 points. You got the S&P up 20 points. You got the NASDAQ up 95 points as it inches closer and closer and closer to that 4.236 extension. And the million-dollar question is, what will happen once we get there? Will it be lights out for the United States stock market, or does this thing go rampaging on off to the moon? That's the million-dollar question we're all waiting to get answered. Yesterday, I posted over there on Twitter, we got within 1% of the 4.236 extension over there on the NASDAQ. The Dow still has a couple of points to go. I think it's got about 2.5% to 3% before it actually gets to a 4.236 extension and then matches the height of the roaring 20s bubble that we had in the 1920s before the Great Depression started. So, of course, everybody on pins and needles to see how are we going to react here as we have the NASDAQ hitting that same extension level. And what's fascinating about these things is they're based on two different time frames. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is actually measured from the peak of the great financial crisis to actually end up getting there, whereas the NASDAQ is actually based off of the dot-com bubble, and that they're both approaching that same extension. These are one of those things in technical analysis we call confluence events, where you have two things happening simultaneously, and that these data points are measured from different points in time. So definitely all eyes on it to see and pray, of course, that we can get through. But, we have to get there first to find out. So I'm definitely not cheering for that because it's kind of a nerve-wracking future if those things do end up becoming problems. But as you could see, we are just about there. So we'll see how things go. As for Bitcoin, though, teasing with that $40,000 price level as the stock market tries to open. Let's go ahead and see what the stock market does do now that it is open. Dow Jones up 50 points, NASDAQ up 89 points, and the S&P up 18 points. So here we go. Let's go look and see who's the leaders of the morning. Netflix opens up a little bit over 1%, along with Caterpillar and NVIDIA. Losers of the day so far are Tesla, United Health, and Amazon. These are interesting right in here. Tesla had a big earnings miss and a negative outlook forecast for the rest of the year in their earnings release yesterday. And I don't know if you've seen the data points on what prices of Teslas are. They're just plummeting. I think they're down to buy a used Tesla is down 50% in the last year. United Health, of course, that's an interesting one because that is the largest by market cap, largest contributor to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. That one makes up over 10% of the Dow Jones. So that one's down almost 5%. But yet the Dow is still able to hold itself up in there. So Netflix, Caterpillar, and NVIDIA leading the way so far. We'll reset these real quick now that we're a couple minutes into opening. 1 minute into opening, really. Caterpillar, NVIDIA, Netflix, and Ford. But all right, looking over there at Bitcoin, $40,000 on the button as we get the day kicked off. Total to the altcoin market, right? Still just holding on top of the range that it's been in for weeks at this point. So we can almost say that's months now, right? What are we at? Almost 2 months Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of playing in this range. We're still just sitting right on top of it with the total altcoin market cap. XRP, still the big tease on if this thing is going to be able to hold itself in here. We have seen this before. This is how things did end up playing out in there. I had mentioned that I was interested in buying this level. I've been spending a lot of time staring at this chart. What I'm actually going to do for me personally and how I'm going to treat this, and not financial advice, you do whatever the heck you want to do, but I always like to be transparent when I'm making big buys or if I'm making big sells, and that's why I get yelled at so much on Twitter. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a big bounce to come out of here and then a back test. So I think I'm actually going to go after that one right in there. Right now, we're waiting to see that confirmation, get that push right back out of that level, and then it'll be the back test that'll be where I will take a stab to add to my bag. So I still own all my XRP. And hopefully this is the moment before things get truly exciting. But we're still waiting for a reaction to come out of here, waiting for a reaction from the altcoin market off these levels to see if something end up happening. And the patience game continues on. So, all right, there you go. Stock market, DXY, 103.43. So still holding these levels. Again, this has been my thoughts. And hopefully this period right in here, if this is how this plays out, this would be the most exciting time of the markets heading back down into here, taking us into somewhere around April or May or June. And when it comes to, let's take a look at this. We're going to refresh that. We have our Fed meeting in less than a week. It's now in 6 days away. We do live stream these things. The probabilities of rate hikes, rate cuts, and pauses. It is at a 97% probability that we will be paused next Wednesday. Also, a greater than 50% chance currently right now that they will continue to be paused as we get into March. Still 89% probability that they will cut in May, but these numbers obviously change incredibly drastically all the time. So as new data comes out, as things happen, we'll see how those things change. Sometimes market reactions can cause those things to change, but when you get GDP at 3.3% and expectations of 2%, why should the Fed cut, right? Usually they're a little bit lagged behind and problems start emerging first before they do. So looks like that's the way the market tends to be pricing it currently right now, that the pause still continues. Again, we've gone through a lot of historical data over the last 20 years with hiking, pausing, and cutting cycles. And it is always shown that when the cuts start, that's the big fat warning sign of bad things to come. But as long as we've been in a pause period, things have been okay. So looks like the market still has it priced in that the pause could last a little bit longer. So we'll see how those things progress as time goes on. Again, we will live stream that next Wednesday. And if you're in the United States, it's around lunchtime. In other words, you kind of got to figure out when that is from you right now, right? Wednesday, 4 hours and 25 minutes from the time that it is right now. That's when we'll be live streaming this thing. So, all right, there you go. Just pull back, waiting for Bitcoin to create some type of divergences to show up in here. There still are none on the bigger time frames like the daily. I'll look at the 12 hours or any divergence there on the 12. Not yet. How about the 8? Nope. 4. I would argue no. 2. No. Right. And still just kind of struggling to get through here. So we need to see some type of break happen in trend of RSI to start getting some kind of confidence, at least for me, some type of confidence that a local low has been found. Again, since we haven't seen a reaction happen in here yet on XRP, it also gives me the gut instinct, and with no bullish divergences emerging in here just yet, we could still continue before this range continues to work its way out. So still just a waiting game in there, but at least it's kind of chilled out a little bit from what we've seen for the last couple of weeks. Moving on along, again, it's still just a waiting game there on the altcoin market. Again, those indexes, this is where my eyes are just glued to throughout the day, watching the United States stock market as it inches closer and closer and closer to these extensions, both with the NASDAQ and with the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So there you go. Heading over to financial news, like we just stated, the U.S. economy grew at a 3.3% pace in the fourth quarter, which was much better than expected. Expectations were 2%. 10-year Treasury yield pulls back after Q4 GDP shows slowing inflation and strong growth. S&P 500 futures gain after GDP report shows strong growth and slowing inflation. Wow. You guys just said the same thing, but swapped 10-year Treasury with S&P. All right, GM, Honda began U.S. fuel cell production in a step toward replacing diesel. That's interesting. I haven't followed any of that, and I don't even, if you asked me if I knew what fuel cells were, I would tell you I don't really know. But I do remember in college having to write a paper on fuel cells a good 20 years ago or something, and I believe it runs on water from my recollection. Southwest Airlines takes a Boeing MAX 7 out of 2024 plans because of certification delays. Comcast tops revenue and profit estimates despite broadband subscriber loss, raises dividend to 7% or by 7%. Here are Thursday's biggest calls. Apple takes a top spot in China's smartphone market. Okay. U.S. GDP grew at 3.3% last quarter, capping unexpectedly strong year. ECB holds rates and signals cuts are still some way off. Stocks poised for another record after GDP report. Credit traders are using default swaps to hedge their bets on interest rates. Tesla declines after warning about notably lower growth rate. Musk says he needs a bigger Tesla stake to avoid being ousted. Porsche's second electric vehicle is 2 years late and key to its future. The U.S. desperately needs EVs under $50,000. They're on the way. Yeah, I mean, I think even Teslas have dropped weight. I think with 35 grand, you can go out and get a like low mileage used Tesla. Alaska Air cites challenging start to 2024 with Boeing MAX grounded. U.S. median rents fall for eighth month on boom in new apartments. Hedge fund demands $100 million from its compliance team after the SEC probe, and China's $6 trillion stock wipeout exposes deeper problems for Z. All right, crypto-wise, the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF wallet attracts inscriptions and rare Sats donations. Yeah, so Bitwise is the first one to publicly show the Bitcoin wallet where the ETF Bitcoins are being held at. And some people are sending Bitcoin to the address. That's real interesting because I don't think you've ever had anything like that before in the United States stock market where you could do something like that. And that's pretty fascinating, right? Here's their holdings, and then you got people just putting money into it for no reason. 3 reasons why Bitcoin hitting 38.5K marked the ETF dip. Oh, okay. Cointelegraph is calling the bottom. Big questions. How can Bitcoin payments stage a comeback? And Ethereum ETF is coming sooner than you expect. Users report new Trezor phishing emails days after support portal breach. Yeah. Maybe there's not a lot of people here, so let me tell you this. If you use a Trezor, like Ledger had this issue happen to them several years ago, in which the ledgers themselves, and this is the same situation for Trezor, likely it's not the actual device that has been hacked or anything like that. It's really like just their website and their database of customers. So the hackers now have lists of address, phone numbers, names of people who bought Trezors. And so if your phone number was associated with your purchase, your email address was associated with your purchase, you pretty much now have years of getting harassed by these scammers, and they're going to be trying to scam you, calling you, texting you, emails. At this point, you're probably just better off changing your phone number, changing your email address, and changing it with everything that you do. Because for years on end now, you're going to have problems. And that's what happened with Ledger. Big questions. How can Bitcoin payments stage a comeback? We already gone through all that, right? Court orders 20, and let's just say that some of the emails that are coming out right now, just so you're aware, they're saying, hey, look, we've had to do a halt to this, this, and this, and this. You need to click this link in order to be able to activate your stuff back. And it looks like it's coming from Trezor. And of course, they're sending it to people who are Trezor customers. And so that's scams. Court orders $20 million to be paid out in crowd machine 2018 ICO case. All eyes were on 40K Bitcoin price leading into Friday's $4.5 billion Bitcoin options expiry. Bitcoin price weakness results from larger macroeconomic concerns. That's my basis, right? So I'm very clear that Bitcoin has unquestionably been following exactly how it's always followed in past cycles and past recoveries, and it still to this day has. Even this rejection right here has the most common behavior, and we've gone through this 100 times, which now you see just dozens of people saying it on Twitter now, is that it backtests previous ranges, right? Talk about that all the time. Backtest previous range. You guys have all seen this stuff before. Newsletters, videos, live streams. This thing was created a long time ago. And that's the typical price behavior that happens in all of these, is that there becomes a backtest of the previous range. Nothing with that has changed. The big $1 million question on whether or not Bitcoin can, do a standard type of backtest and then go on into a bigger recovery, all stems from this stuff, and whether or not Bitcoin is capable of doing that, because it's unequivocal, it's not debatable, it's not a theory. It's been proven that each of Bitcoin's bull runs all take place in these moments of range breakouts for the stock market. That's the 2013 bull run, the 2017 bull run, the 2020-21 bull run. They all take place in these things. So the $1 million question is, will there be a problem here? If there's not a problem here and this thing keeps going, well, then of course I have to start changing my ideas on what I think is going to happen to Bitcoin in regards to staging a recovery or not. But it's macroeconomic conditions and macroeconomic concerns on, the broader view. But either way, even in every type of bull run that we've had, it has always rejected right here. And it was just so fascinating to see it, that we've talked about it for so long, and the crowd just goes completely furious on Twitter to say that. To say it, this is where it's always rejected. And they just get furious. But that just goes to show you, the crowd, how the crowd behaves, how the crowd all gets tied into one idea together, and then you have a big event. But every single time that these things have recovered, that's all. What's always happened. The big question is, will it be able to sustain itself and go into a bigger recovery? And that's why I am constantly looking at these events right in here to say, every bull run has taken place in these. Are we going to have magnificent problems that happen in here for Bitcoin? And will that hamper its ability to go on and do another bull run? But undoubtedly, it still, to this day, is acting exactly how it has happened, how it has reacted in previous recoveries. The big question is, how does it react on a back test? Should it get there? And what is the stock market doing? And that's going to be a big factor influencing my views on this market when it gets down in here. And so if you're not on pins and needles, you should be. But I don't cheer for this, man. Trust me, I will deal with 6 months of clowns on the internet saying, "See, we kept going. You don't know anything." I will deal with that much better and financially deal with that much better than had we not talked about it at all. It's definitely a major event. This is our big event right now to watch for the market. We know this is exactly how Bitcoin and Ethereum topped back in 2021. They both went above that 3.618 retracement, massive move down. The exact same style recovery happened in here for Bitcoin, where it does exactly this, these 5 waves, and then ABC backtests on here, and then it just shoots straight up to the extension level. But what it did do in here, and like what we see over here in the Dow, is it did not just go. It does spend time like that, right? That's how we ended up playing out in the market. So it doesn't necessarily mean The sky comes crumbling down. Just because we get there doesn't mean that everything falls apart in half of a blink of an eye. Just because we get there. And last time, the FOMO, the euphoria, the excitement of the market, the optimism of the market, all still remains in here while you're back up into these, while you're still hanging out in here. So just because we hit it and pull back doesn't mean that everybody's going to become utter panic machines right away. We could still hang out for quite a while. Okay. DXY, yep, still just chilling in there. Let's see. I think we got all the news in here. Did we get them all? Socket Protocol recovers 2/3 of stolen Ethereum from hack. Bitcoin price risks 30K over supercharged inflation, says Arthur Hayes. Look, the narratives just don't mean anything. Yeah, right. I hope we learn that just by anybody watching the channel for forever. The narratives have never meant anything at any point. All the noise that we've been hit with all the narratives all along the way, it ends up doing, what does it do? It retraces, it hits the 618 retracement level, then you get news that happens at the peak of it. None of the narratives ever mattered. The Dow, the NDXT, the NASDAQ, all of them. NASDAQ still going for the 4.236 extension. No narrative ever mattered ever. So if Bitcoin is just repeating super cycles, right? If it is going to go into some massive thing, 30K is not due to rising inflation. It's just baked into the cake. Okay. So that's just it. All right. There you go. CoinDesk, the place where there's really never any news. Like, at least on Cointelegraph, we have like 10 things that we can like make fun of or actually talk about. On CoinDesk, we usually just get 2. Bitcoin holds above 40K ahead of US GDP, $5.8 billion in crypto expirations expiry. Satoshi VM marred by controversy days after Savim issue. Like, why do we care? Okay. There you go. Nothing on CoinDesk as usual. I just find that weird. There you go. Cointelegraph. All right. Bitcoin above $40,000. Let's go look at, oh, no, not above. 39,935. There you go. Still just holding from the last couple of days in here. We'll see if we end up getting the reaction that we're hoping for here. In the altcoin market, as it still does just continue to hold on top of the support level that was put into place there a year and a half ago. So, all right, there you go. That's it for today over there in the news. Not a whole lot happening in there except for GDP beat. Let's see how the stock market is doing now that it's opened up a little bit longer. Dow is up 78 points, which is 0.2%. NASDAQ's up 74 points, which is 0.42%. And the S&P is up 17 points, which is 0.36%. Leaders and losers, NVIDIA, Roblox, and Caterpillar. Leaders of the day, losers, Tesla, United Health, ARK, and Amazon. Otherwise, that's what's going on in markets today. Still just waiting. There we go. We got through it pretty quick today. Hop into the chat. Judd. Is that how you say that? JHUD. Judd gifts 5 BCB memberships. Judd coming out of the gates, man. And thank you, brother. Martin Kelly. Hey, BCB. Loving your TA course. Member for 1 month. Thanks for all that you do. Do you still own Atom? Or any thoughts on why it's not moving over the last few months? I absolutely still own Atom. I believe it's in my top 10 holdings. Pretty confident it is in my top 10. No, just moving with the market. It'll have its moment. It'll have its moment. Men here. Hey, BCB, I've been watching you since 2020. Thanks for all that you do. I love your content. God bless you and your family. Well, geez, thank you. I think that's your first time too, right? Thank you very much. Kind words. Pat gives 10 BCB memberships. Pat, thank you, man. Anybody, guys, thank the guys. If you're in the chat and you get your name swapped green, man, you got hooked up, you got emojis. We do a member stream once a month. Totally gifted to you by the community. And this is like an everyday thing. Very kind. Thank you, Pat. XRP John, member for 4 months. Hey, BC backer, thank you for everything. Hit the like button, friends. Yes, so we have 2,600 people in here with 633 likes. If you could, that's the number one way to support the channel is hitting the like button. It's what keeps me going. I can't live without them. All right, Rock. Hey, BCB, what do you think of Solana short term? How low could it get? What is that strong support level? Thanks for all that you do. Um, yeah, Solana is just something I can't touch at these prices. Uh, right. So when I took the Solana trade and bought the lows at like $10, which was publicly announced on here, called a clown. You know, and then everybody, like, let's take it off log and kind of see what's happening in here, right? So where's it gotten back to? It's gotten back to April of 2022 prices, right? So it's at the struggle zone. Just you have so many levels way further down that you could go to. For me with Solana, like when this trade was taken, it was also like here's an idea. Go to Ethereum. Kind of show you how Ethereum behaved in 2018. It's because I had actually been through this rodeo before, seen this before. So I never owned any Solana. My first Solanas were all bought down in here. I didn't own any during any of these times. And then I owned Solana from here to here. So and that's because I've been through that before. Let's see. Let's get you off the screen. You off the screen. And we'll put you on the daily. So the thing about Solana, just with where it's at, there's so many resistances happening in here, and so much risk of really having to really come back and revisit the mid 20s again. So it's kind of one of those things like value wise, is it undervalued compared to the rest of the market? No, it's not undervalued. Is it like appropriately valued where the rest of the market is? Yes. So, and we spent a lot of time talking about that like everybody is viewing Solana as this big, massive bull run. But what happened was Solana actually got utterly pummeled. It got utterly destroyed. And so this was a return to mean. This was a return back to market. And so it actually took rising 1,500% for it to still be down over 50% from the all-time high. So the huge run was just because of it getting absolutely decimated. And you look at total value locked, you look at activity. It's not ranked the highest in like developer activity. I think it's ranked like number 19. So it's not like tremendous. Again, we also saw all the typical suspects of big money trying to get retail investors to really buy into it here and become hodlers in here. You have the Raoul Pauls with the DTFU, whatever, don't F this up, campaign going right now. Remember, he did, this is my biggest trade ever, massive long right now. And like, I just don't trust really rich people when they're telling me how I should be acting. Ever. Like Michael Saylor on the day of the ETF launch. He like specifically, his tweet is just, you do not sell your Bitcoin. All right, let's go. I know I'm bouncing all over the place with this, but I have to say it. Michael Saylor. You do not sell your Bitcoin. January 11th, right? So I see that same behavior happening here. And I still think like there's a real possibility and just that you could have a big, massive fallback down into the mid 20s. Maybe it won't, but how you could risk manage at these levels for Solana, very difficult. It's just something I wouldn't I wouldn't even know where to begin, right? How's the weekly moving? How's the 200 week move? Does it even have a 200 week moving average yet? It's trying. It's trying. I could just totally imagine Solana slamming back down into the 20s, and the price level that it's at right now, I just wouldn't be able to risk manage something like this up here this high. So, all right, my thing's not going to load. Right? Do we not have a 200-week moving average? How far back? We only go back to 2020. Yeah. We only go back to... we're just shy of 200 weeks, huh? So we don't have 200 weeks worth of data for Solana. But I would guess it's probably on top of its 200 week. Here's what we could do. We'll alter it. How about 180? How about 190? That gives you a good clue. That gives you an idea. How about 195? It's so close to 200 weeks. So, 46 bucks is like your 4-year average. We'll go even closer. About 198. All right, there's the 198 week moving average. So we can assume that the 200 week resides there as well. And that would be a perfectly reasonable level to pull back down into. So with Solana, just how big of a run it has, the irrational exuberance, the wrong footing that happened by the crowd, this became a chase, right? This didn't become long-term investing. It became buy it because it's up and because people like Kathy Wood and Raoul Paul and influencers are all talking about it all at the same time. So I don't confidently feel I could risk manage from these types of prices reasonably with any level of confidence. It doesn't mean that it's not going to go up and go into like a full-blown retrace, but at the levels that it's at currently right now, it's just something I wouldn't be able to grab. The times for me on grabbing stuff like that are when depths of despair, when everybody, like, do you guys remember that? It was a laughing stock. If you owned Solana, you were a laughing stock. That's the kind of stuff I like. I like it when the crowd is just utterly on one side, totally making fun of a group of people and just smashing them to pieces. And then the same thing happens to the opposite side where they all pour in together. Whereas here, they're all front running FTX. They're like, hey, we're going to sell first before FTX does. Just kidding. We'll be FTX's exit liquidity. Right. So, and it's not that like Solana is bad, like in any way. The total value locked, not exactly the highest developer activity, but definitely in the top 20. Huge, passionate community that was there prior to all this, an active community of people, and one of the higher TVLs. So this isn't like a dead project by any means at all, but something that would not be in my wheelhouse of strength to be trying to buy or do anything when this is the problem child of everywhere in the market currently right now. This April of 2022 level, we've seen that really just on everything. So until we can get some evidence from the market that we can go beyond that, right? Like where did Bitcoin just reject that? Right there, right? So Bitcoin just rejected from that level. So it's not like percentage-wise there's anything there. The trade was that, right? That was the trade. That was the big money to be made. Now anybody wanting to do a big trade like that, and this is why I'm always talking about percentages matter, not prices. If you want to get that same trade that just happened from when everybody was making fun of Solana to everybody YOLO longing Solana at the peak, you've got to get Solana not only into new all-time highs, but more than double new all-time highs to do as well as somebody who bought here to here. So it's just not something I'd be comfortable with in any way on anything at this point. And that's not to say anything bad about Solana. I got to enjoy the ride, but not from here. Not from here.
But thank you, Rock. Capris. XRP needs good sentiment from Bitcoin to break out, just like in 22.5 cent days in November. Needs good sentiment from Bitcoin to break out, just like in the 22.5 cent days in November 2020. If Bitcoin has lower to go, it won't happen yet. Well, yeah, I agree. If Bitcoin goes crashing from here, probably not good, right? Like if it doesn't find some support and stabilize in here and then just hang out for months on end, right? That's the optimistic environment for the market. Is for Bitcoin to just get stable, just get boring, a bunch of action happen in other places of the market because people are so emotional in markets and then they forget what things are like. Many of you maybe probably remember it. What happened if you're holding one asset and you're watching Solana go? You're crying, Solana's doing so well. Same thing happens with all these assets. It happens everywhere. And that's really a lot of what happens during those altcoin runs. Bitcoin's stable. Bitcoin's kind of peaked out on really as far as it can go. And then Bitcoin just kind of gets really boring. And then they see a couple of them start to go in other places. They start chasing, and then the whole thing just kind of spirals out completely nuts. But if Bitcoin does go crap in the bed, it's probably going to be a rough time in the altcoin market. So regardless of my thoughts up here, people will always paint a picture of me. I'm not cheering for Bitcoin to just crash. I'm cheering for this is just distribution, and distribution takes a while. It tends to lure people back in over and over again. Yesterday we talked about the Batman, right? And that could last for quite some time. But if this thing does go like that, yeah, it's going to be likely a rough ride in the altcoin market, likely a rough ride for XRP. But having positive sentiment, like good sentiment to break out, just like in the 22.5 cent days, sentiment was trash can back then. People talk about that like it was a nightmare. Nobody reflects back on the 22.5 cent days and thinks to themselves, that was a great time. Not at all. Because it was very similar to where Bitcoin had been moving up and XRP had not followed. And then, all at once it starts coming up and going very quickly. And negative sentiment is very characteristic of XRP prior to price moving up. And that happens really in most assets. Most people want to chase everything when it seems so obvious. But like we just showed with Solana, typically it's going to be when sentiment is in the trash can. That's where the bigger opportunities do come from, because everybody's wrong-footed. And you just got to think about it in that manner, the crowd being wrong-footed. Joseph Woodard, member for 6 months. Hey, BCB, timeline-wise, are we still following closely to 2016-2018 run for Bitcoin? That is if the stock market does keep marching. So what he's referencing to is this. We actually talked about it yesterday. That from this whole period in here, this is the first time throughout the last from 2014 all the way through 2016, our most recent continuation to continue following that. Right. This for those who haven't seen this, which the vast majority of you have. This is on like day 400, and it's actually day 399. We get the same things, and then we capitulate. Then we leave the ranges together on day 699. Then we enter a 200-plus day range, and you can see they leave the ranges together. And now things definitely change, because by now you actually would have already backtested the $30,000 level here for Bitcoin for that continuation to happen. And I posted about this on Twitter at one point too, and then CZ Binance like commented on it and then followed me. And then no more following. So I would say from the time behavior, structurally all identical, really up until now. Up until now, I could argue not identical. But one thing that is identical, that again, when you get caught up into that crowd behavior to ignore, is that this right here, this peak right here, is what? Compared to that. That's a 618 Fibonacci retracement. That's a 618 Fibonacci retracement. So they still technically did the same things. But from a time perspective, are they following similar times? Nope. I would argue not anymore. But price behavior still similar? Sure. 618 retracement. That's a 618 retracement. And I know obviously we're not like that, right? We're using these from time perspectives. Like these peaks are way below these peaks. These peaks are way below these peaks. So, we're not looking at these to say, look, it's not the exact same price levels. That's because none of this has been. But time-wise and structure-wise, consolidation ranges-wise, they've all been identical. And then referencing back on what this actually was right in here, this was a 618 retracement that did reject back down to the support level. And so you could see that over here. That's what that was, a 618 Fibonacci retracement rejection. ABC. So price behavior, still similar to hit that same exact level. Time-wise, right, this thing just went straight up, hit, and then just ABC'd its way back down. So it's not acting time-wise the same. Sorry, trying to find my spot where I'm at. Black Cat. Thanks to the one who blessed me with a membership. The BG fake videos look real. Worries me that we won't know real from fake in the future. Does it to you? Yeah, I think the biggest way that AI fakeness, deep fakes will be used is in politics. That's going to be the biggest thing to influence our perceptions of reality and what's real and what's not real. And not knowing, right? Audio, like there's this audio recording, and like I don't try to talk on politics, and I don't know the reality of it. I don't know if it's set up. I don't know if it's real. Some senator trying to get bribed by some other senator or something like that just made the rounds yesterday. And I was listening to it because I normally don't listen to those things, and it immediately sounded like a political setup to me. Kind of like, okay, you're saying all the buzzwords that you should be saying in this thing, and it sounds perfect. And then it's like, with something like this, how do we even know it's not a setup? It's not intentional. This isn't politics playing its game. And then at the same time, you say to yourself, how do I know this isn't an AI audio recording I'm listening to? Because you don't know. Right? So I don't know. I think politics is the place it could be used the most, and like guerrilla marketing and all that stuff. And that is nerving. Who knows what will be real anymore? Yeah. As for what he's talking about, the Brad Garlinghouse stuff, there's ads run all over YouTube. They get targeted on my videos too of AI Brad Garlinghouses. Those were all fake. You got to be careful out there. Never, ever, ever. Always you send your crypto to somebody, no matter who it is. If you think it's Brad Garlinghouse, if you think it's blockchain backer, or if you think it's anybody, you're sending your crypto and they're promising to send you more crypto in return, you are getting scammed. And there are people impersonating everybody. I get impersonated constantly. Brad Garlinghouse from Ripple gets impersonated constantly. Do not send your crypto to anybody. Do not fall for the ads that are run. Do not fall for comments that happen everywhere over Twitter. Just don't fall for it. Don't send your crypto to people expecting crypto in return. Thank you, Black Cat. Oscar Hernandez, feet pick. If you know, you know. Eric Martinez Hernandez. Hit the like button. Thank you, Oscar. It's good to see you, Oscar. Deaning it yourself. Hey, BCB, what are your thoughts on XRP not pumping due to the fact that it's not being used by mass adoption, or do you think that the pump will only be tied to the market move? I have presented it 100 times, not 100. That's an exaggeration, and under exaggeration, 1,000 times that the price action is correlated with broader market moves. There has been no bull runs for XRP. that were not associated with the rest of the cryptocurrency market going on a bull run at the exact same time. All the stuff of flipping switches and all that kind of stuff, it's fantasy. The data shows it. I've made so many videos on it to show it has only moved with the market. And so the only reason we would even be looking for potentials of things like this to even be happening right in here is not based on some Ripple narrative, not based on amendments that are getting passed pretty soon, which are exciting. It's really just based on, hey, we're at a market condition where something like that could happen, where if Bitcoin is running out of exhaustive steam, is there also potential for excitement and euphoria in other markets at the exact same time? Yes, we're at those conditions where retail tends to go YOLO long on markets, and YOLO long, YOLO excitement, euphoria, all that good stuff. Those are the conditions you look for events like this to end up happening. So even though we're seeing these structures look similar, we're looking around in other markets at the same time to say, do we have conditions matching those things of areas in markets where retail lays down their wall of worry and then just becomes YOLO? And this is unquestionably an area where retail tends to YOLO. And bull runs, crazy big moves, they really just mark the end, right? That's the final movement. Right, the final movement of all markets and all excitement is the ending movement, right? It's not the beginning. And that's always the part that's hard for people to understand, is that when things get crazy, when they get out of control and euphoric, we're marking the end. And that's what one of those funny comments I always got in 2021. How could this be the end? It just started. And it's like, no. It was a huge process to get to this. The blow off, the wildness, the excitement that happens in the market, that's the ending. Right? The big pump is the last couple of weeks, and then it's all doom for a long time. Right? And so when the big pump happens, it's brief, and that's it, right? And so, like, and like even like looking at this chart is interesting. Look at this. Like, you kind of imagine where the rest of the market is right now and how similar we are currently right now. Like, kind of like a back test on top of the long Wyckoff accumulation range in here for Cardano. Where am I? I can't find the chart I'm looking at. Okay, there and there. Right. Kind of give you a bit of perspective here. So, but yeah, it's always been tied with big market moves, euphoria, excitement, YOLO, all that kind of stuff every time. Stephen Edinburgh, my man 5. Thank you, Stephen. You've been just really giving a lot. Thank you, man. Oscar Hernandez posts, don't forget to work on your own exit plans. Hit the like button. Tay Wednesday. And of course, thank you, Oscar, pushing bcbacker.com. There you go. Check it out. We had somebody comment in here said they loved the course today too. Yeah, let's go. James from Blockchain Backer. Can you look at Bitcoin and CME futures chart with regards to support level? It looks like it hit it on the chart. Yeah, CME futures. Yeah, you could argue that it has. Just there hasn't been anything convincing of it yet. Nothing convincing yet. But spot hasn't, right? Thank you, James. How am I supposed to pronounce that? Shaken, not stirred. Okay, that's how you do it. Shaken, not stirred crypto merch member for 5 months. Love to the BCB crew. Thank you very much. Sahan Lifestyle says, you are my most trusted macro chart analyst, but I all in on Bitcoin and can't handle it. And can't handle it will top out at 50K. If I am wrecked for that by not selling, what to expect? 30 years for no all-time highs? But I all in on Bitcoin. And I can't handle that it will top out at 50K. If I am wrecked that by not selling, what do I expect? 30 years of no new all-time highs? This is the answer, right? This is going to give us our answer on likely what's going to happen with this market. If these things break from their 4.236 extensions and surge above them, and that this ended up being a nothing burger, and nothing ends up happening in here, well, then what do we have? We don't have some type of crashing, crumbling stock market. It doesn't make this distribution happening in here, but yet it's just another continued cranking movement for the stock market. If that's the case, if there's no problems happening in here, what's the likely path for Bitcoin? Well, all other times it kept going to the upside, right? It became that this was just the repeating. If this thing crashes and crumbles, and this is literally the peak of the United States stock market for the next 20 years, there are no examples that you can reference back to with Bitcoin to say how it will do, because Bitcoin was created right there. Bitcoin was created after the great financial crisis. It was created after S hit the fan. It started when the bull market started. We had already seen the climactic selling. We had already seen it. We already passed it when it was introduced in January of 2009. We had already done the selling climax of the United States stock market, which you can see here. Right. This is the selling climax of the United States stock market right here. This is the secondary test, right? So this was all the climax of the market. This is where everything breaks and hits the fan, right? This is just a secondary test. Bitcoin happens after the selling climax has already happened, and then just exists during all of this. So it just depends on what your thesis is, right? If this thing turns down and heads down the opposite direction and the trend completely changes, will Bitcoin continue to shift up when it's only shifted up in these environments in the stock market? Your answer is as good as mine, because this will be an environment we have never been in before. But if I have to take the analysis of saying Bitcoin goes into its 2013 bull run right when the Dow Jones breaks out above the great financial crisis, and this is all of Bitcoin's 2013 bull run. Then there's the 2014, 15, and 16 bear market. Then it goes into the 2017 bull run, and then goes into the 2018, 19, and 20 bear market. Then goes into 2021 bull run, and then 2022, 2023, right? What happens? Right? There's no answer to that has happened yet, due to where Bitcoin was created after the selling climax had already happened in the great financial crisis. Bitcoin's existence of 15 years was during a 15-year, almost 4.236 extension. And then they released Bitcoin ETFs up right at the 4.236 extension, right? So it's just like the perfect script, the perfect story, and the perfect places on the price charts for it to happen. Why did the ETFs never happen anywhere along the way? They happen up here near the 4.236. So if this market changes direction entirely and there's no more new all-time highs for the Dow, then how are you going to interpret that new bull runs are going to happen, right? Because we don't have a reference to look back on and say it does, because these are the bull runs. These are the bull runs for Bitcoin. New all-time highs and rampaging for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. When are times where it's gone into new all-time highs and Bitcoin did not follow? Moments like this, right? Where we enter ranges. You have a peak of a bull run. We enter ranges. The Fed does a hiking cycle. The Fed is paused. Then the Fed starts cutting, and then S hits the fan, right? And so that's just kind of what we've seen, right? We're pausing, right? We're in that pausing cycle right in here. You're in a new all-time high. But the question is now, is what we're seeing right here, is it another one of these? Is it another breakout? Or is this what we have seen happen before the cuts began and before the market hits the fan? And that we have seen these events happen before, where you take out the high during a Fed cut cycle, and then everything turns its way over, right? And that's the $1 million question. If this is a true breakout, or is this exactly like prior to the great financial crisis, which every recession has happened like that in the last 20 years, guys, right? It's, you don't fall and then go into recession. We go into these new highs and then we go into recession. That's what happened in the great financial crisis, and that's what happened during COVID, right? So it's always, of course, exciting to see all-time highs. We always get thrilled. We like seeing our portfolios go up. But there has to be a little bit of concern on what's happening in here. And if these things do reject from here, then what is the long-term outlook for Bitcoin in general, right? We are all waiting for that answer. And to just blindly believe what is the absolute nonsense spit on Twitter, that it is 4-year cycles, block reward halvings, magic volcanoes, and Michael Saylor, that is just not true. That is great clickbait. That is great sponsored material. It is not reality. This is all reality. And so we have to focus on these things and say, what is going to happen here? If this thing plows through it and keeps on going, then guess what? This is probably just the bounces and off and away, Bitcoin goes off into a new cycle. If this is the ending, and if this is just distribution like it was before the great financial crisis and before COVID, this is likely the topping of Bitcoin, right? So pray to your God. This thing keeps going. I'll pray for it. I'm not cheering for it. I'll pray for it. But it's there and we got to be aware of it, right? Thank you for the kind words. Papa Lon idea. Do you think gold will rise more after the NASDAQ market falls or crashes, then rug pull on gold and commodities, which will then be a good buy after? Or am I just an idiot? Well, you're not an idiot. It's a valid question because we still continue to wait on that decision to happen in here. Neither gold nor the stock market go on bull runs together. It's always one or the other into an actual bull run. And I've written newsletters about this on Substack. I've done, where are you? Gold. We've made videos on it to talk about it too, to overlay what happens with the United States stock market and what happens with gold, right? That one or the other. Right. Right. Bear market gold, bull run stock market. Bear market stock market, bull run gold, right? Bear market gold, bull run stock market. Now both sit paused. No one willing to make the decision on who's going to be the victor or not, right? There can be times, as you can clearly see, they can both go down together, right? During the great financial crisis, liquidity events happening throughout the whole market, they can both go down together. And this isn't a small number for gold. It's 33%, but it's in a macro uptrend, right? So we still don't have a resolution from these. You know, anybody in crypto, right? You should be cheering for stock market. You should be cheering for wrecked gold, destroyed gold, and you should be cheering for rock and rolling stock market. And like that's against what Bitcoiners, how they paint Bitcoin. They paint Bitcoin as the store of value. It's nonsense. It's a tech stock. It acts like a tech stock. You should be cheering for gold to get destroyed. You should be cheering for precious metals to get destroyed. You should be cheering for equity markets to kill it and crush it. In the event that the stock market does fall, your question is, well, how will gold react to that, right? Well, we know that in order for macro trends to happen for gold, they do happen during periods of where stock market enters ranging bear, right? Ranging bear, stock market crushes it. Finally, the stock market leaves this area. What happens? Gold breaks down, right? So that's a positive condition. The issue here is, if this is true, that this is the peak of this, or like in the example of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, in the event of an actual end of a longer term market cycle for the Dow, we don't know what would have happened with gold during this environment. And let me be very, very clear too. I don't think this is the future. I don't think it is a straight line down for the United States stock market. But even in this type of environment, which would be utterly hitting the fan, right? This would be absolute hit the fan situation. We don't have a reference point to see how gold would do then, because gold was pegged. Gold was $20 an ounce, $20.58 an ounce or something like that, pegged by the United States government. They didn't issue the Executive Order 1601, I think it was, until 1933, in which they took back all the gold and repriced it. So we wouldn't know exactly how gold would react in this exact environment. But we can clearly see throughout the last 100 years or whatever, last 60 years, whatever, the inverse relationship between the two. So if there's a bet to make on an asset or a speculation, we've seen how that one's reacted. But I've been pretty clear, there's no clear answer on what would happen in this type of environment in the short term. Again, I own gold. I've taken the gamble on it. I've taken the shot on it. But there's definitely that unknown factor right there. The one thing that is known is both of them have not gone off into bull runs together at all. But your question is, do we see the rug pull on equities and then the rug pull on commodities? I don't know, man. Which then will be a good buy. I mean, it's possible. So like the reason I say it's possible is just like what I actually just showed a second ago over here with like the great financial crisis, right? If there's a liquidity event in the markets, historically everything does pull back in that. So like even in here, you get a pullback in gold in the liquidity event of COVID, the COVID crash, right? Gold still falls from $1,700 an ounce to $1,450, right? It just becomes an automatic liquidation of portfolios that ends up happening in there. And that should be the concern for Bitcoiners with their ETFs now that they've like legitimately tied Bitcoin to the stock market. It is now going to be part of portfolio liquidations. It is now part of leveraged players. People could be leveraging whatever, and then part of the collateral that they have is their Bitcoin ETFs. So it becomes even more tied to the stock market now for Bitcoin. But yeah, in a liquidation event, you'd likely see gold do something too. The question is, will the macro trend continue? And as I've shown, in the event of a 4.236 extension on the Dow, we don't have the exact example due to gold being pegged back in the 1930s. In this environment, gold was pegged. It was not we couldn't just sit there and speculate on it that it would do better in here. The only thing we know is in 1933, the government bought it back and then repriced the price of gold to $34. Lowe's 94. Hey, BCB, lurker for about 2 years. Appreciate all that you do. Curious on your thoughts on Tesla in regard to BCB crashing structure. Could we be seeing a wave 7 drop below the wave 5 at about $100? Cheers. Brr. Tesla. Yuck. I think the bigger question is that a bubble that's popping, right? uh, and, is that a bubble that's popping? This is one that I still have just refused to buy or to participate in due to the size of the bubble that happened in here. 3,000%. And the lack of a very clear price behavior. If anything, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Still unable to crack through here. I could imagine this is still just a bubble popping, but I have not had a very clear read on this asset in particular. And it's one I wouldn't, and I still haven't touched. And I still not a huge fan of it. And I probably bring a negative perception on that because I'm not a believer in having to charge my vehicle. I think it's dumb. Right? That's why I give Bitcoin a hard time too. You know why? Because I love the original idea of Bitcoin. I love the idea of FU money. And it's not a non-government money, anti-bank money. I liked that. And that was what was really cool and passionate about Bitcoin. But all that is lost. All that is gone, whatever Bitcoin is now. And so this is when I don't know. I don't see it, the structure isn't clear enough for me. And I think your question is that was wave 5 and that you're about to go down here, right? It could be. I mean, especially like let's pretend that is the reality of what's happening in here for the NASDAQ. If that's really what's happening in here, what's going to happen to Tesla? Right? Not good things. I read something over there on Twitter today, an interesting stat. Not that. Let's see here too. How much are you pulled back? Almost a 61.8% retracement of that. Anytime there's been a greater than 6% fall in a day or something like that with Tesla, the following 30 days, the price rose by at least 18% or something like that is what I saw. I haven't back tested that reality, which I don't know if that's true right there. That doesn't look right to me. We have to go check that guy's math. Or maybe you're referring to this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm willing to say this chart nothing has been clear for me on this. Ever since this bubble popped, it's just not my favorite one to look at from a structure perspective. Andy Philpott gifted 5 BCB memberships. Andy, my brother, thank you. And thank you, Lowe's. Sorry I couldn't be more help on the Tesla chart, man. It's my lack of confidence on the Tesla chart is still the reason why I don't own it. I've never bought it. I've never taken a trade on it yet. Rice Nudeless. What do you think about the Atom chart? It's the same as the rest of the market in accumulation. It'll probably just do a sign of strength phase eventually to get a big breakout, like several of the other ones have. It's still in the same thing. I own Atom. I've been scooping it up. Giorgio Ardamas. I've been with you since the COVID crash. Thank you for everything. Is there anything specific that you're looking for to see if alts will run independently of Bitcoin, or do you think Bitcoin D will hit new lows? I think Bitcoin dominance will hit the bottom of where it's been. I do believe it'll actually even set a new low. But I'm not in the camp of thinking Bitcoin dominance is going to go down to 15% or something like that. I think it'll go slightly lower, but not devastatingly lower. Things that I'll be watching for that would create levels of concern would be that if we see the altcoin market ripping, you see the Bitcoin dominance falling apart and things like that, and we are in environments where you're just kind of like that and just creeping along for a couple of months, just kind of ranging and retracing here, but the Bitcoin dominance is falling apart. Those will be elements I'll be looking for. I'll be looking for elements where the altcoin market still continues to hold. It just kind of rips up to the upside and Bitcoin doesn't follow it. Those have always been signs whenever the altcoin market is roaring without Bitcoin. And that's my speculation, is that Bitcoin has peaked. It doesn't mean it won't set another new peak up in here. But that's just how distribution happens. And like we showed yesterday with the Batman, right? That's your common stuff. And that's what I'm cheering for, that it is kind of drawn out and that it is not a kerplunk situation. A kerplunk situation is just bad for all markets. It's bad for Bitcoin. It's bad for altcoins. It's bad for everybody in every way. So we're looking for distribution in here. Porky Pig, Pantalones. Any investment based on cap gains versus income tax? Any investment based on capital gains versus income tax? I'm not sure what your question is. If your question is tax implications, well, your capital gains is going to be based on your income tax, right? So whatever your federal income tax level is, that is what your capital gains taxes are. So at least your short terms are. If you hold an asset for longer than a year, then you fall into short-term capital gains taxes, which I believe tops out at 20%. So you could be an income earner who, let's say your top income earner and you have to pay a 39% in federal income tax rate. Any short-term capital gains that you make will be taxed at that 37% rate. However, if you hold an asset for longer than a year before making that trade, you fall into the short-term capital gains tax level, which is actually only like 20% capital gains taxes. For others in lower tax brackets, it's lower than that. I think short-term capital gains taxes are as low as 10%. Or excuse me, long-term capital gains taxes are as low as 10%. So there is that advantage to hold something for longer than a year, and then just be bouncing in and out if you have that site. And so I have found I appreciate that advantage of long-term capital gains. Not that I'm always doing everything based on long-term capital gains, but some things I am. When we had things really worked out here, that it happened to be a new year. It happened to be more than 1 year since the FTX collapse. And that was something we were talking about at the end of last year. We were just talking about, hey, look, FTX collapse happened in, November, December. All the accumulating happened in here by the smart investors. They're all buying here from November through early January, right? Look at this, January 11th, right? Where does it break out? It breaks out on the 12th. So all these guys in here, and think of the magic of that, guys. Here's January 10th, okay? Breaks out, gone on January 12th. Everybody who bought the lows January 10th, January 11th, they are in long-term capital gains taxes over 1 year. Boom, sell it. We're in long-term capital gains taxes, and we're in 2024. We don't know taxes for quite a while. The game is played to your disadvantage, and if you're not paying attention, you get sucked into the don't F this up camp. So there you go. Long-term capital gains taxes get here, and they also launched the ETF perfectly. Don't worry, that was totally not on purpose. Perfectly, so that all of this was in long-term capital gains, because long-term capital gains ended here. If you bought it during this breakout, imagine that's how this happened, like for tax purposes, right? If you waited for Bitcoin to break out to here and you bought it right here on the 13th, or you bought it right here on the 12th, and then you sold it here, you were short-term capital gains. All the smart money who bought it all and then said, hey, SEC, we need you to approve this on the 11th. because we all accumulated prior to the 11th of January 2023. Okay, no problem. Boom. Long-term capital gains. Crazy, right? David Lechner, your 1.5x playback trick is a lifesaver. Thank you, BCB. Yes, if you find yourself behind the stream and you're like, man, I'm trying to catch up, I'm like 10 minutes behind the stream, just click on the little cog wheel and change the playback speed to 1.5x. And then you'll hear me start talking like this and it'll be moving really fast. But then eventually you catch up to live and then you hear me talking at the slower rate and it sounds like I'm talking like this because you're used to hearing me talk like this really fast. But that's how you get back up to live. Tusalitis 17. Hi, can XRP wick down passing the yellow box but closing above it? Would that change market structure for XRP or still be okay? Sorry for my bad English. Look, anything can happen. Anything can happen in the markets. Could this thing wick down and then shoot straight up to the upside? Of course it would. But would it be something common that we'd be able to look at and have any level of confidence on? Be hard for me at that point if we start setting any type of lower lows beyond here. That's not the typical behavior for uptrends and for recoveries. And after these long Wyckoff accumulations, we shouldn't be going and wicking down into these prices. It just shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be taking out these lows over here. This should be our support level. If we get past that, the image just becomes really blurry for optimism, right? You just don't have uptrends. You don't have all that stuff. RC. Can you please look into Chainlink and provide input on macro targets and outlook? So Chainlink's just been stuck. I'm not going to spend too much time on Chainlink. But I mean, it's not looking great where it's at right now. I mean, this is the levels where like a long time ago, back in November, I'm like, hey, I've sold 50% of my Chainlink. And it just hasn't done anything since then. And like what you actually see here is quite similar behavior to what like it's finally going to backtest. Higher lows and then the lower daily low and then the retracement happening in here. And then now pulling back. So it's not looking pretty for Chainlink right now if you've been waiting for this range to break up. I got back to the April levels. This has been the area of the Wyckoff that it's never come back to back test, right? Like even on the total market cap, we've already seen the market cap come back and at least hit that level. Chainlink still just hovers up in thin air, not doing it. And for just a simple example, something that has done similarities to this, where you have these higher lows, these higher highs, breaks into the lower low, goes back into the retracement, just to remind you of a structure like that. That, right? The higher lows, the higher highs, the break, and then the retracement, and then the turn down, right? And so it's just been kind of like this really long waiting game on Chainlink to finally come back to these levels, and it still just hasn't yet. So this may be the time that Chainlink finally does come back down. Okay. Robbie, thank you, RC. If ADA goes to the 4.236 extension by market cap, then that's a 21x from here by my measurements. There's no way that could actually happen, right? That's the same stuff we've always seen. That's what Ethereum Classic did. Cardano did over 100x in 2021. Ethereum did a 60x in 2020 to 2021. We see those numbers happen quite often. And the thing that we definitely know from 2021, though, is that to expect that to happen on everything, if you're going to use any type of past information to give you any type of clues into the future, to not expect that to happen for everything. Only 22% of assets from the top 100 even touched all-time highs last time. Only 22%. But Cardano, yeah, that's what I'm looking for it. And it doesn't mean that Cardano's done correcting here yet, though. Cardano could definitely still have some more correcting to do in here. But yeah, like in this example right here, this thing right here went on to a 4.236 extension in 2021. The same behavior. Right. So I think we're kind of all at this point here waiting to say, are we going to get a liquidation in this market, right? And pray to God we don't, but if we do, that's why I've had 20% in cash. If we get a liquidation, then I have my list of assets to go grab. But yeah, definitely, that's exactly what this did. This thing in here went 4.236 in 2021. Zechariah Nagi, how do I chart something that's in an all-time high like Nvidia? Right. So Nvidia is one that's everybody's having a struggle with to be able to figure out where a peak could be for it. Because it's just a dang bubble, right? Right. So pick your poison places of where how has this chart reacted to historical indicators, right? Will this thing just go on for forever? And that's a joke. Things do not go on forever. They eventually do pop. They pop in a very big way. This one's just utterly difficult because it's not reacting to any traditional indicators or any traditional measurements. So on this one, it is in price discovery mode. And where the music stops, nobody knows. So typically in things like this, when people are long them, eventually they pop, they reverse, and people typically are just going to wait for some type of retracement after the reversal has happened, and then cut it, right? Because that's most people they just go to Twitter looking for somebody to tell them what's going to happen and be a future predictor. But the reality is, people tend to treat third range boundaries as their exits, right? And to third range boundary it, because how can you do that when you're not having those reactions? And when you can have the reactions, is you actually wait for the prick to happen, then sell the third range boundary. And so that's what's happening with Bitcoin for me right now, right? Is that we're at the third range boundary. This is what a professional will do. Like, this is what professional traders are going to do, is they're going to treat a third range boundary as a selling area. Retail will treat it as a buying area because that's where max excitement gets reached. Max pain, sell. Max euphoria, buy. But that's not what traders will do. That's not what people who have emotional control can do. They will sit there and say, this thing's probably going to bounce and retrace at some point. And that's what we said all of 2022 and 2023. It's going to bounce and retrace at some point. You get to the third range boundary, you cut it. We get here, you cut it. You're like, see, I told you. And they're like, you're a dummy. It's going to the moon. It's like, okay. You weren't saying that last year, though. But this is how pros will do it, right? So very difficult in an actual bubble to try to short the peak of something like NVIDIA as it's doing something like that. But typically, once the prick pops, then you get third range boundaries, right? If you pop, retrace, then you can sell, and then you can have meaningful risk to reward options in there to say, okay, if we get back to retracement levels, maybe that was a bad idea, but otherwise I have my targets, and this is where I can risk manage this particular idea. Okay. Crypto Keeper says, duh, gold is forming a cup and handle on the 20-year. Bitcoin's forming a cup and handle, right? Yeah, you know, and then what? No, right? So I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't count on it. Oh gosh. Hey, you guys ready for this one? Here's what we'll get eventually. Bitcoin's forming a cup and handle. All right, everybody remember this. January 25th, 2024. Shout out to when your first guy on Twitter says Bitcoin's forming a cup and handle. We'll wait for it. I hope I didn't lose all my stuff. I thought I had a bunch of stuff on this chart. I did. Did I lose it all when I did this? I did. I lost it all. AE, how long do you think a stock market crash would last and why? That's the inverse when moon question. I have no clue, dude. AE, I have no clue how long it would last. Just no clue. Oscar Hernandez gifted 5 BCB memberships. My brother, thank you very much, man. Control Z. Yeah, I know. It's undo. I'm hitting it. I'm maxed out. It's because I hit that replay thing. And when I did that, and it sounds like TradingView doesn't let you go back beyond that once you do that. I mean, it's not like it's exactly hard to do all those things all over again. But I had those little lines we've had on there for about a week. They are permanently gone now. It was something like this. It was something like that. Would you have you rotate out of EOS, Dash, and Zcash? I haven't had EOS or Dash in 2 years. Zcash, I still have privacy. If there's any chance of, and we always have to have this discussion about privacy. If there is any chance of crypto being what it's supposed to be, privacy is going to matter, or else the idea of internet cash in itself was stupid to begin with, and Bitcoin's narrative is completely lost. Monero, Zcash, whatever it is, privacy, it's a mandatory thing when it comes to doing money and transferring money. And if there's no use of internet cash and privacy with cash, then there's just going to be no payment, online payments. I think everybody's very clear. Like, if you're sending money around, everybody else can see what your money is doing, right? Like, are you cool with that with your credit card? No. So if there's any chance of crypto having any type of payment utility for like peer-to-peer stuff, then it's gonna require privacy. But we've shown that all the data development stuff on EOS got abandoned in 2021, 2022. And then when it just comes between the two, I went with Zcash over Dash. Jeff G, member, welcome. Radio Luna 2. Hey, BCB, do you still believe XRP would hit $10 to $13? Remember you had this on your radar for a few months back. By the way, amazing Frog Wednesday beat. Oh, welcome to the Frog channel. No. Every Wednesday we do that. We go through, that question gets asked every week, so probably just people tuning in. It's all based on the market cap of XRP, right? If you're going to utilize that ideology from what we saw with Bitcoin and Ethereum Classic, inflation erodes where that price number is. The longer inflation tickles on, the lower that number goes. Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, all of their market caps hit the 4.236 extension. Price charts slightly below. Why? Inflation, right? So when you look at inflation of XRP over the course, it's about 7% annually. Everybody thinks, Ripple's just dumping tremendous amounts. It's 7%. It's way less than most of your favorite assets. Most of your favorite stuff is way more than 7% annually added to the circulating supply. But over the course of 6 years, that 7% erosion continues to drop that range down. And I think the most recent one we did was a week or two ago. That number is actually now below that $10 level. It's now at like $9.85 or $9.75, something like that, is what a 4.236 extension of the market cap would be. There we go. Andy Philpott, my brother. Again, dude, thank you very much. 5 ECB memberships. Birdie, Doge locked in a perfect Wyckoff on the 4-hour and then just died all the way back down. Thoughts? Not on Doge, no. Doge is full speculation, no utility, no use. But with Doge also, I don't think Doge will see a new all-time, if Doge ever sees a new all-time high again, I'd be massively surprised. I think Doge's best shot. I think of Doge as 2017 XRP. Right. That's what you are, right? And it was just massive numbers, and really the same story. So I think Doge's best chance, and it did a good job getting down to where we thought, into these lower levels, like 4 cents, which was absolutely hated on. We said that here at the peak. I bet it's coming all the way back down to these lows again. Of course, when the crowd was massively into Doge at that time, so those videos got massive thumbs downs when those happened. We talk about Doge in that manner because the crowd was all there. But again, what it's done, just a retrace would be the most I could anticipate to see Doge end up doing again. As for just continuing to range, it just continues to range until the rest of the market goes. But if you're looking for something special to come from Doge, it's not. I don't think it's gonna. I think maybe you get up to 3 cents. If you're lucky, maybe 4, or 40, 35, right? But this is just going to be a retrace for Doge at some point. JJ Jacob, FTX returns customer funds in peak euphoria. I don't know what the narrative will be with FTX. United States government praises him, releases Sam from jail, puts him back in charge. I don't know what the narrative will be. I don't know. Right, and they're going to return in cash form, right? They're not going to return back in crypto form, right? Just depends on how the media wants to spin it. All FTX users are about to get their Bitcoin. They're going to dump on the market. Just kind of how it goes. So, all right, there we go, guys. We're keeping an eye over here on the United States stock market. Nothing too huge going on here in crypto this morning, as we're all just still kind of chilling in here, waiting on Bitcoin at 39,767. We'll tune in on it tomorrow. DXY 103.59. GDP Q4 came in at 3.3% with expectations of 2%. So beating expectations. Looking over there at U.S. stock market as we get ready to head on out. Caterpillar, Google, and Netflix lead the way with Tesla, United Health, and Coinbase as the losers today. Yields are down. Indexes are up. Metals are up. So go silver, go gold. There you go. I don't know. We haven't looked at this in a long time, but guys, look at natural gas. remember when they were like peak fear of the apocalypse winter coming? Nobody's going to make it. It's going to be so cold. Winter is coming to Europe and they're going to be screwed. Look at that. Yup. How fun. All right. Well, still waiting for some answers to come in here for Bitcoin to find some divergences. We don't have any divergences here just yet. Keeping an eye over there on the United States stock market as those 4.236 extensions are approaching. every day as you put your head down to go to sleep, I recommend that you pray. Pray for it to absolutely get through there. It's something we would all want to cheer for. But, also being real with it, respecting it. I don't know if there's the perfect answer for it. The way I've treated it is I have a 20% cash position in my cryptocurrency account. If there's an opportunity to deploy that, of the amount that I have in crypto, I have a short position over there on put options on the tech sector. That's equivalent to about 10%. So about a 10% short compared to my crypto portfolio over there on the tech sector, with some puts, most expiring there in about September. And I have about 20% cash position. Otherwise, we'll see how things go. Otherwise, waiting to see how this resolution comes in here. The thing that would be absolutely optimistic for XRP. I know a lot of people are holding on to XRP, waiting for some resolution in there. With no signs yet of an absolute rip coming out of here just yet. The most optimistic sign would be a very quick push out of here. Getting up into those mid to upper 50s. To be excited about that, I would be very excited about that. I won't be excited about it from an aspect of being like, oh my gosh, it's shooting to the moon right now, which of course would be the sentiment on Twitter. Just be cautious of that. It would be the sentiment, but it would be a very nice reversal sign of prices shooting out in here. And so far, I don't see any reasons to see it couldn't do it, and it shouldn't do it. So we'll look for that big pop out of there, and then if we get the pullback in here, I'll be hitting that buy button pretty hard right there. So waiting on that, and hopefully we get that here before we head into the weekend. It'd be nice to head into the weekend with a little bit of price relief. So we'll check in on it again tomorrow to see how it goes. Otherwise, guys, I hope that you are all having a wonderful day. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, if you're looking for more content from me today, you can check out bcbacker.com and all the videos over here. There's over 40 of them recorded very similar to my YouTube channel, talking in easy to understand ways for everybody, whether you're brand new, you've never opened up a chart in your whole life, or whether you have years of experience and you've put hundreds, maybe even thousands of hours into charting. I'm very confident you'll learn things in here because I put 7 years of experience and a ridiculous amount of work into it. But of course, explaining it in very easy to understand ways when it comes to Elliott wave theory, setting up your own charts and indicators, and accessing TradingView and CoinTrader Pro, and talking a lot about the historical behavior of the market and a lot of stuff that people don't pay attention to. And one of those simple things is just percentages. People don't pay attention to percentages. It's what this thing right here. I know I'm being a jackass. When you do the math and you say, okay, I ran it 200%, and then everybody's screaming at you, no, it's going to go higher. It's like, well, the percentage is what mattered. And that's the thing that mattered. And a lot of people just don't pay attention to that stuff. But there's way more than that. Crowd behavior. We just watched the crowd do what they did together. In emotional management, let's just kind of go hand in hand there. There's downloadable PDFs in here so you can print them out for yourself and take a peek. Over here on bcbacker.com, you can print those out or save them to your hard drive. And then, of course, you could check out blockchainbacker.substack.com, newsletter, all various different types of things in here, whether things are going on in the market or like the case study that was just recently done. It was a 4-part series about the altcoin market and applying that to 2021 to show what were those elements and consistent factors among altcoins that succeeded versus ones that did not. As we only saw, like we mentioned earlier, 22% of coins going to all-time highs. Was there anything consistent amongst that subset? That's what we spent 4 newsletters diving into on here. And so all that is still available over here on Substack. And then, of course, talking all about just the most recent one, showing all that reversal volume and discussions on Bitcoin and retraces and what's happening moving forward. So check that out on Substack. Check out bcbacker.com. Have an absolutely wonderful Thursday. And keep your eyes over there on the stock market. So All right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. These live streams have been going way longer than I thought. I just looked over there and see we've been live for 1 hour and 39 minutes. That's absurd. There's people who can't watch that. It's not that I don't mind hanging out with you guys. I love hanging out with you guys, but I try to think of everybody who watches the channel because there just haven't been many videos lately. There's no way, 90% of people can watch 1 hour and 30-minute live stream. But there are people who treat this like a podcast and just kind of have it as background noise. If that's you and you're lurking, say what's up in the chat right now. Because there are a lot of people who do that. They just lurk, background, they're doing their accounting, they're swinging their hammers, right? And BCB in the background saying, yo. But all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and look at all there's the what's ups coming in. My lurkers who are just treating it like a podcast. All right, that's it. I'm wrapping it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for lurking and listening while you're swinging a hammer. If you could, please wait, I feel like I'm missing something. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this live stream and give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not gonna leave it like that. Have a great day, everybody.